Yo, what's up? Welcome to the Kinda Funny Gamescast for Thursday, May 9th, 2024. I'm one of your hosts, Blessing Adeoye Jr. Joining me is my Raj ally, Roger Picorni.
What up, Bless?
We got the Nitro Rifle, Andy Cortez.
What up, Bless?
And we got WWE superstar, Greg Miller.
Barrett, are we live on YouTube? We are.
We are.
I thought I was going to be able to skate through that one. You know what I mean? Like, I said it, and I was like, oh, no one's going to notice that one. And I was like, ah, shit.
How you guys doing today?
Good. Good. How you
How
doing?
are you doing in the big boy seat hosting in the show?
Yeah.
It feels weird. I'm usually not hosting the show, and so I'm like...
Welcome to the new world order of Gamescast. Anything can happen.
Oh, no.
You should have went into it. Of course, I'm hosting because we got two reviews that we're doing today. Of course, Roger and Andy have played the one and only Animal Well, and Greg Miller has played Cryptmaster, and I played a little bit of Cryptmaster as well. So we're going to talk all about it. Of course, remember, this is Kinda Funny Gamescast. Each and every weekday, we get together to talk about the biggest reviews, previews, and topics in video games live on YouTube, Twitch, and on podcast services around the globe. If you love what we do, please support us with the Kinda Funny membership on Patreon or YouTube to get all of our shows ad-free, watch us record them live, and get a daily exclusive show. For a chance to be a part of the show, submit your thoughts and opinions as YouTube Super Chats as we go. Housekeeping for you today. You've already gotten some big Xbox talk on Kinda Funny Games Daily on YouTube, Twitch, and podcast services. Up next, more Pokemon Nuzlocke on YouTube and Twitch with Nick and the crew. And if you're a Kinda Funny member, today's Greg Way is Greg's shout out to Scotland.
Shout out to Scotland and Steven, my Georgia Peach.
Thank you to our Patreon producers, Delaney Twining, Kieran Hovasapian, and Carl Jacobs. They are brought to you by Aura Frames, Shady Rays, and BetterHelp, but we'll tell you about that later. For now, let's begin with, and forever will be, topic of the show. Again, I'm in KFGD mode still.
I love it. You're killing it.
Topic of the show, we're doing two reviews. We're going to start off with Animal Well.
Whoa.
Which has been played by Roger and Andy. Roger, how much of Animal Well have you played?
I finished Animal Well. I have about 16 hours in the game, 14 hours, I think, to finish it, and then I started up a new game, which might give you a little tip of what I think about the game.
I beat it. It took me around maybe, it says 11. I'm going to go a little bit less because you leave it idle there sometimes. You write down a couple notes, open Instagram, scroll it. You're like, why is this in my algorithm? I guess I'll buy this jacket or whatever. Yeah. You know what I mean?
Do you buy jackets off Instagram?
That's something you get. Sometimes it hits you. You know, sometimes
it's funny.
you get hit with the algorithm.
You get hit
on TikTok. I bought on the TikTok shop one of like those push-up boards.
Oh,
because you see all the buff dudes. They're like, oh, I use this push-up board.
Is it the ones where like you put them in certain slots?
Yeah, there's like all these different slots, and so you can do
these
different kind of push-ups.
Target these muscles.
Yeah,
but then this one, yeah.
And I started using it, and I hated it. Like it just made my palms hurt using it. But even still, I'll see stuff on TikTok shop, and I'm like, maybe I should pull the trigger. Like I see a nice shirt.
Can I borrow it?
Yeah, you can borrow it. You can have it. Shoot, I don't use this thing. I hate this thing.
Bring it to work. Leave it here.
Yeah.
No, Nick will throw it out.
Nick would be so mad about it.
Greg, did you play any Animal Well?
No, I haven't. But I played a bunch of Cryptmaster, and I forgot to write down how many hours I was. And I was after Games Daily. I was there's something I was supposed to go do. I'll be right back.
All right, go for it. Go for it.
Check the computer. Yeah.
While he's doing that, Andy, I want to start with the question: what is Animal Well?
Ooh.
Animal Well is a very untraditional Metroidvania made by Billy Basso and published by Big Mode Games, which is Video Game Donkey's publishing arm, who, a couple years ago put out a tweet. It was like, hey, I'm getting into video game publishing. I want to look out for cool games. Here's one that we signed. It's called Animal Well. Check it out. And Animal Well is one of the most brilliantly designed in terms of like puzzles and getting to the next spot and how am I going to solve this problem right here. The thing with Animal Well is like it's been at a lot of different conventions. It's been shown off a million different places. You and I have seen it at least 3 or 4 times like at different
SGF.
Different little events
In the studio.
Yeah. The thing is, Animal Well does not, in my opinion, demo well at all. No. It's a game that you need to sit down with and to fully understand what they're going for. This is a Metroidvania that, again, non-traditional because it doesn't have combat. You're not shooting a little gun. You're not dashing and parrying and trying to charge up a weapon or whatever. You are just you're a little guy. Yep. You're a little animal guy walking around in a big Animal Well world, and you are trying to get the 4 pieces of the Triforce. Let's just say that. I know there's 3, but you know what I mean. In this case, there's 4. You're trying to collect
a square.
You're trying to collect the big 4 things in the world.
Yeah.
And it is a game that will keep on surprising you and keep on surprising you with just how impressive the design is.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
You mentioned that it's appeared at many an event, and I like. There have been so many events where it feels like the talk of the town. Like you mentioned, it doesn't demo well because it is a game that you want to like dig deeper into. But I think the thing that it does immediately that captures people is have such a
Great
interesting
style.
art style.
Yeah.
Like visually, it's incredible. And even in just the hour that I played, I had moments already with like the firecracker, like things like that, where it's oh man, this is really engaging visually already. And it seems like one that, with the hype around it, with the talk around it, has the potential to be a breakout indie critical darling. Roger, do you feel like so far, after beating Animal Well, that it lives up to that for you?
Oh, it lives up so much more than that for me. Of like, I am not traditionally a Metroidvania person. I'm exactly like you, right?
Yeah.
Where it's like, you say that word to me and it's like, sure, whatever. It doesn't really mean much to me.
Doesn't
It's not-
move the needle for
Yeah,
you.
it doesn't move the needle for me. So I booted up the game of like, hey, everyone's talking about this game. Let me boot it up for a minute. Literally was like trying to be like 15 minutes. I'll give it. 3 hours later, I'm like, this game took me by surprise in such a way. I'm gonna be. Hey, we just changed the video.
I can't wait to hear the score. You're the first score. You're gonna be the first
We
score.
just changed the review score. We are now doing a 20-point review scale, right? From 1 to 10, and then
Yeah.
0.5's in the middle, right?
Unless, well, do we have a
0.5.
0.5 or do we have a
Do we have a
10.5?
point? Do we have a 0?
We do have
I
a
think-
0.5, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because I think like it would be a 19.
That's
below Gollum.
0.5 is like
half
Gollum
Gollum.
if you're playing like on a netbook with like through cloud
Yeah.
services, but really bad internet. You know,
Oh,
it's like
God.
that's 0.5
Yeah.
out of 10.
Ouya exclusive.
But since we're doing it, we're starting off right. Animal Well is a 10 out of 10 masterpiece.
No
for me.
way, really?
Absolutely.
Awesome.
It is a game that took me by surprise in such a real and genuine way. And now, stick with me, guys. The way that I can best describe this game is it feels like a video game that exists in a movie where you're like going up the attic in your grandma's house and you're opening up the forbidden door and you're looking through a bunch of just old antiques and then you find Animal Well on the floor and then you put it into the NES and it just feels like a game that wasn't created. It just was always been there.
Oh.
It feels like
divine by
Yeah,
God.
exactly. Like it feels like a modern classic, but a timeless classic at that as well. Every single moment in this game, even when I was completely and utterly lost, I was having so much fun and also extremely frightened for what was going to come next. There's so much atmosphere here in the game in every single moment, and it's just fun. Like, it is a fun time to play, and it asks so much of you to go in there and actually find all of the hidden secrets and to learn what all of these items mean, but it works so well, man. Like, every single moment in this game is additive, and you and I had such different experiences playing this game.
It was great.
And it was great coming into work and
Yeah.
you and I talking and having the playground experience of you drawing things on a piece of paper and be like, have you seen this thing? Have you done this thing? What does this look like for you? How do you get around this puzzle? It is, for me, like, it is not a perfect game. But I don't think I've played a game in the last decade that is as close to being perfect as this game. And that's truly what I feel about it.
Yeah, when you talk about atmosphere and vibes, like visually, along with the audio design, like they use so many of like the way old school bleeps and bloops that you just haven't really heard in a long ass time. I think the audio design is fantastic, and what the game reminds me of, you mentioning like the lost game in the attic. To me, it feels like a lost game that never came out on a console that was like shuttered within a year or whatever. Like it's such a wild old vibe that just kind of it puts you in a time and place, and with the way that it's designed, I don't think it's like super player friendly. There's a lot of moments. This is not Prince of Persia Lost Crown, where you're gonna have a lot of like kind of player help and tool tips and loading screens with a tip and trick to tell you how to fast travel or whatever like that. This game does not hold your hand. It is a little unfriendly in a lot of moments, and it reminds me of sort of what a lot of people were talking about when it comes to Dragon's Dogma. Is like Dragon's Dogma 2 rather is like there's a lot of friction there, but it really makes magic in a lot of moments. I loved coming into work to talk to Roger, and I'm also really surprised that Roger doubled back on it again because when we were first talking about this game, I was like, wow, I'm like kind of weirdly into this game. I didn't think it was going to be for me. Greg was like, can you try it out and play it for review? I was like, yeah, sure, of course. And after a couple of hours, I was like, wow, I'm weirdly into this, even though it's not generally my vibe. And then coming into work and talking to Roger about it and having those cool experiences of Roger went way east on the map and I'm way west, and we're experiencing stuff that like neither of us have really ever seen. And then Roger, maybe a week later, and by the way, shout out to Big Mode Games for giving us these codes really, really early.
Yes.
Like, I think that there's been a lot of great discussions on Twitter so far. I've seen from a lot of people in gaming Twitter, people working in media saying like, this does not feel like this publisher's first release. Like, they did such a great job with getting this game out there really, really early. So we had a lot of time to kind of dissect what this game is and what the puzzles are. But to go back to really quick, because Roger, there was a moment where I had asked you several days after our first discussion, and you were like, yeah, I think I fell off of it. I talked to Barrett as well, and we were all kind of like, ugh, not so into it. So what brought you back to it? Was it just the curiosity?
Yeah, it was. I had the hard stuck moment where I was like, I don't know how to get to the main story, right? Like, I don't know some story, quote unquote. I didn't know how to get to one of the next bosses or whatever. And I was like, I was hitting that wall. I was like, I don't know what I need to do. What do I have to do? And then I was like, you know what? Let me just double back. Let me just see. Maybe there's some hidden thing or whatever. And I was having so much fun just finding the little nooks and crannies and going into different areas that weren't even like hard locked before. Like, it wasn't like I found a new item or anything like that, but it was just like, I just realized like, I'm thinking about the game differently now. Like 3, 4, 5, 6 hours into the game, I'm like, I thought that I needed like a new item or something. No, I was just thinking about the game completely differently than I was now in that moment. And yeah, it was taking that break, taking like a day or two or whatever it was, and then coming back to it. And I'm usually the person that I have this weird thing where when I get really lost in a video game, I get a headache, like a really pounding headache. And I had none of that. And that's what like 90% of my playthrough was, of going back and doubling back and like putting things on the map. And I was just having a great time.
To ask a question about that, I'm curious because earlier you talked about how much fun it is and like you having the most fun in this video game. Now you're talking about like the directionless nature of it. Yeah. That was one of the things I noticed early on is as I started playing, I'm like, I started going to rooms and I go to the rightmost rooms and it keeps going. And I'm like, oh man, I'm way off the path that I was. And then I'll go and I'll start like, following that path. And I'm like, okay, this path keeps going too. And then I'll go up and I'm like, oh, this keeps going too. Like it is truly, hey, go whatever direction you want and get lost in this thing. And at first blush, I think that's neat. I think that's cool. But it's also a thing that I get nervous with the way that I play video games. Because I very much am like, oh, but I
should go back right now.
Yeah, I need to go back. Like, I don't want to like lose track of this thing that I was doing before. For you, Roger, when did it start to lock in for you in terms of the fun in getting lost in it?
Because when I realized that that's what they wanted me to do, right? Like, there wasn't like a player issue here. It wasn't like, oh man, Roger should have went left when he should have went right. No, this is exactly where they want me to go. And there's so many moments in the game where, yeah, you and we had the great experience of there's 4 main items in the game, and I went and got one, and then you went and got a completely other one. So you and I had completely different experiences for a very long time, to the point where I was like, I don't even know where this thing that your first item that you got, where you even got it, because I got so lost on the other path. And once you and I had that conversation, I was like, oh, this is what they want us to do.
Yeah.
Like, they want us to just completely get lost. And I think it goes back to what this game is, right? Like, you are a little blob inside of essentially a animal well of apex predators, right? Like, that's what's so cool about this game, is that you are never, at the end of this game, you never feel like you are the powered up Super Metroid. Like, you are absolutely just a little blob that has the adaptive nature of like the cool prey that you see in like Nat Geo, right? Like, where it's like the sand mouse that like hides and camouflages. Like, you just get smarter and you are able to adapt to this world, but you never feel strong. And being able to explore this world and just get smarter and learn more about it and find the little things in the background where it's like, oh, this is glowing. I thought that was just a neat little background thing. Oh no, that's really important. That connects to this. Oh, it's like you're almost learning a different language in this world.
That's one thing I really loved about the visual nature and style of it, is like, this game doesn't, when you're first in this game, you haven't really seen anything that looks like this. And because it's not traditional by any means, all of the stuff that you're finding in the world looks so alien and different to you, and everything that you're seeing in the background looks like nothing, but because everything looks like nothing, there's probably something there.
Yeah.
And there's so many little things in every like screen that you're kind of walking through that might help you progress to a certain point that at when you're looking at it, you're just like, oh, that's just design. That's just like an art asset or whatever. But it's probably going to help you on your journey. This is not, again, when I bring up being non-traditional, this isn't like hopping into Metroid Dread and running around as Samus and seeing a green door.
Oh, I know. I'll come back to that later.
But you have the red gun. You're like, oh, my red gun shoots the red blast, and that won't open the green door. But I'll know about that green door later. There is nothing obvious like that really at all, aside from very, very obvious designed doors that like are locked. Like you walk up to the door and it'll say locked. And you're like, all right, I either need a key for that or I need to figure out some sort of puzzle. But yeah, Roger's spot on when he's talking about this game. You're learning the language of what this game is and what the developer wants you to absorb from it. And it just gets more and more brilliant and surprising as you keep on going. And I fucking love experiencing a moment where I'm like, God, that is so smart. The developer is so smart in this moment for, laying the foundation for what would be this big ass secret this early on. And now I come back like, holy shit, this stuff is like, this is one of the smartest games I've ever played. I had a great time with it. My score for this game, because when you are going towards, you're getting like the 4 MacGuffins, one of the ones that Roger walked in here and was like, dude, this is like one of the best things I've ever experienced. And I experienced it. I was like, that shit was amazing. And the rest of those moments didn't quite reach the highs of that, nor did the ending of this game really hit me in a way that I thought it was. I felt like I was supposed to be like, really, like, I think of my Outer Wilds experience when I hit the end of that game, and I'm just like overtaken, and I have tears in my eyes, and I'm not sure why, music is swelling all this stuff. I thought it was still, I think it's still like an amazingly designed game, but I think it was a bit uneven in spots. I give this game an 8.5 out of 10. Right on the precipice of being amazing. And I do think that if they did try to make the game more player friendly, I think that would be a disservice to it. Yeah. Because you are just supposed to, this is so old school by design. You are supposed to kind of learn and make your own way in this well without getting a tutorial pop up that says this item does this. Make sure you look out for this. Like, it's so brilliant in a lot of ways, and it just falls short because of the other three, call them like boss fights if you want, or you're not fighting. You're not, you don't suddenly have a sword,
I'm interested in that, right? Because, we talk about this game as being a Metroidvania. Roger's talked about how it's not a Metroid style. You feel like you're this strong being by the time you get to the end of it. How is it in terms of progression? Are you so you're not getting hard locked in moments? Is there like do you feel different from the beginning of the game to the middle of the game, or is it really, hey, whatever it is at your disposal is what you're able to use to solve the puzzle of how to get to the thing or finding a key or whatever? You know what I mean?
So no, absolutely. So there's the main core of this game is that there's 4 items, right? And these items are essentially like almost household items. Like, I mean, I guess the non-household item is the firecracker, right? I don't think anyone's got that at their house. Maybe you do. I don't know.
I mean, listen, you don't know what I'm doing.
I don't judge. But then it's like bubbles, and then it's there's a yo-yo, and there's like a frisbee, right? So it's like, it's very simple things that, yeah, of course, there are definitely moments where it's like, oh, clearly I need to throw a frisbee there. So if I don't have a frisbee, I can't do anything with it. But there's a huge chunk of this game that, like, just with like the first item that you get, which I believe is just the firecracker and then the frisbee, right? Or did you get the?
I got the firecracker and then the bubble blower.
That is wild to me because I started the game again.
Just hearing this nonsense,
but it is just wild to me because like I started a new save last night and I got the frisbee again for the first time. I was like, how the fuck is he? Like, what direction did he go? I don't know how this worked, but it's awesome.
I have no clue. Yeah. Keep on going. Sorry.
No, you're good. There's a big chunk of that game where once you get that first item, like you can just solve a ton of areas in that game, right? Like you don't feel hard locked, quote unquote, until you start to find those areas like in any Metroidvania where it's like, oh, clearly I can't jump this high. So there's something I need there. But yeah, by the end of the game, you have all of the tools you have. And the cool part about it is like, there's still puzzles that I'm like, oh, I'm missing an item for sure. It's like, no, you're not missing an item. You're just not thinking about it correctly. Like you just need to figure out the different ways to use that item. And that's what's cool about these items is that they're so deceptively simple, right? Like a yo-yo, you're like, oh, it's like, I get it. Like it just glows in the dark and you can throw things at it. It's like, no, you have to actually throw this yo-yo at random things in the environment to really get to know, oh shit, this yo-yo can do X, Y, and Z. And it's like all of that exploration that they do not tell you when you pick up that yo-yo. It doesn't say, hey, that yo-yo can, do whatever, break this object. And you have to find that out yourself. And that's like half the fun is like doing something, trying something, and be like, this is not going to work. It's like, oh, fuck, that works. It's crazy.
There were so many moments where I felt hard stuck, where I'm just like,
What do I
dude,
do?
What do I do? But also because you can't there's a lot of like little save spots in the world. It's a little like landline telephone. You go up, you hit save, and whenever you die, you will spawn back at the last place that you saved at. But you can't just fast travel to a landline, any of the phones that you find in the world, which would have been super, super convenient. But you have to go back and kind of like, what rooms did I go through? What rooms have I? Oh shit, I hadn't saved in a while. God damn, I'm way the fuck back over here. This sucks. It's gonna take a while to get back to where I just was. But one thing that you find yourself doing because you've learned the language of what the game is you have maybe 3 or 4 items, maybe you only have 2 of them, but you realize how they interact with the world. And now you're kind of going through every level, and it wasn't, there's some stuff we cannot talk about. There's a decent amount of stuff we can't talk about, unfortunately, because of the embargo
but even
guidelines.
Then, I don't think we would even want to talk about it.
I was going to say, it
No,
sounds
you're
like
right.
this is the kind of game you want discovery for.
For
so you
sure,
really wanna
for
get
sure.
into.
There are definitely some moments, though, that I accidentally use an item somewhere, or like I deliberately use an item somewhere thinking it was going to maybe interact with the world in one way, and it did something completely different. I'm like, oh shit.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Now I have to look out for all of these things because I know that this item interacts with them in this way, and that shit happened by accident, and like it was such an awesome moment of this. I felt like I was like lost in the forest and I just learned how to make a fire, like it felt so damn cool, and like having that player agency just adds so much more to the experience because then you feel like you have ownership over this now. It's like, oh shit, now I remember seeing one of these items way the hell on this region of the map. Let me go all the way back there, see how it interacts with it. When you open up the map, you can kind of like zoom out a bit. You can drop down on all your markers. I was dropping down several little different markers to denote where things were in the world, which is something I kind of rarely do because games are always very, very player friendly, and games are always going to have map markers telling you what certain things are. I found myself using so many of the little icons. Whenever you open up your map, you could drop a little swirly icon, and whatever the hell that means. To me, it meant something, and this icon meant something else that I would drop down. And it reminds me of when Elden Ring first came out, and I think it was Jason Schreier mentioning he had a little notebook of notes that he was taking. Maybe it wasn't Elden Ring, but
Is it The Witness, maybe? Because a lot of the way you guys are
definitely
talking about
very
this
similar.
reminds me of The Witness, and The Witness is one of my favorite games.
Witness, very, very, very similar thing. But I think it may not have been Elden Ring, but I remember someone mentioning like I was writing down a lot of stuff, and that turned a lot of people off. And it's like, well, you don't have to do this, but I found fun doing it that way. And as somebody who rarely ever drops down custom markers in Metroidvanias, I was doing that all the time, and it just made the experience much more enjoyable.
Yeah.
Everybody in chat is saying it definitely was Elden Ring that he was talking about.
Yeah, no, that's the reason why I started up a new save, is because I was like, I wish that I knew that information going in, because I think, not that I would have had a better time, but I think it would have been a more efficient way to use my time. But that's also part of the fun, right? Like, I'm definitely going to, for my next playthrough, I don't know if I'm going to actually finish it again. I don't know what it's going to look like, but I already have like drawings on a piece of paper, and I'm like, okay, well, this thing is in this place because I didn't get the stamps that comes in a little later in the game. So I'm already writing things down on a piece of paper. Like, it has gotten me so invested in like an actual tactile feel. Like I want to actually understand and find all the secrets and do it in a linear way. But there was this one moment specifically talking about the map markers and all that jazz, where I'm not going to spoil it for anybody, but like there is this big moment in the game, which you and I were talking about, that I thought it's a boss moment essentially, where it's like, hey, you got to do this thing. And I was like, really? There's no, that can't be right. You actually really, you can't be making me do this thing. So then I went through the entire game. Literally double back. I had unlocked everything in this game pretty much. I went through every single room and I put markers on every single room. Just be like, okay, it's not here, it's not here, it's not here. And I had so much fun doing that, which in most games would be like, why the fuck can't I fast travel? I can't believe I can't do this, blah, blah, blah. I was just having a great time because every single room I was like, oh shit, now I can do this thing. Now I can double back. And then, I went through the entire game. I had, I think there's 64 markers you can put. I like maxed that out 3 times. So like I had 64 and I had to go back and remove them and then start doing the other one and remember where I put them. And then I was like, oh, I guess there's no secret here. I just have to do the thing that they're asking me to do. And then it led to such an intense gamer moment of me sitting in bed in my Steam Deck and Leanne's sitting next to me and she's like, what's happening? I'm just like, I'm just not good enough. I just need to get
It's me.
It's me. The game is not bad. I need to get good right now. And that moment of finally doing that thing and getting there. And I remember just being like, like I did it. I had the full on gamer moment. I fully succeeded at this thing and it felt so satisfying. And I agree and I understand what you're saying of like that is the height of that game and then everything else feels like an epilogue. But to me, at least from what I've been reading from the interviews with Billy Basso of like, this game is so deep and there's so much more to find. And I understand that,
did I hear some comment? There's something in there that he thinks is going to take years or something?
So it's weird because like, I can't tell if there's actually something there that's going to take 10 years to like figure out, but he says that he's designed this to have that like long lifespan.
I love that.
Which is insane. And also the cool thing about this game really quick is like the way that he built it from at least the interviews that I'm reading is for it to be able to like run on anything. So like you just need like a 1 gigahertz CPU to run it. And like that's it. So you can run on anything and also Doom. And you also developed it in a way that like doesn't rely on Unity or anything. So like again, like you can put this on like a flash drive and bring this to school and like play this game fully, which is super fucking rad. But yeah, there's so much depth to this game that I see some of the achievements. I see one achievement that's like wild and I'm like, I don't even know how the fuck I'm going to do that. I don't even know if that's even possible, but it seems like there's so much depth to it that even when I finish the game, it's not going to be done. So yeah, I'm in a weird place because like part of me wants to look at the IGN guides, but then also part of me is like, that's going to ruin the fun. So I don't know.
That's awesome. I want to bring some YouTube super chats into the equation, but before I do, I want to tell you about patreon.com/kindafunny and youtube.com/kindafunnygames where you can go and get the Kinda Funny membership, which allows you to get shows ad-free. And speaking of ads, let us tell you about our sponsors.
This episode's brought to you by Aura Frames. Looking for the perfect gift to celebrate the moms in your life? Aura Frames are beautiful Wi-Fi connected digital picture frames that allow you to share and display unlimited photos. It's super easy to upload and share photos via the Aura app, and if you're giving an Aura as a gift, you can even personalize the frame with preloaded photos and memories. Greg, Kevin, and a ton of people here at Kinda Funny are obsessed with their Aura frames. It takes about 2 minutes to set up a frame using the Aura app. You can add unlimited photos and videos and invite as many people as you want to a frame. Aura displays photos in true color and automatically adjusts for the light level of the room. At night, when you turn off the lights, your frame also turns off to save energy. From grandmothers to new mothers, aunts, and even the friends in your life, every mom would love an Aura frame. Right now, Aura has a great deal for Mother's Day. Listeners can save on the perfect gift by visiting auraframes.com to get $30 off plus free shipping on their best-selling frame. That's auraframes.com and use code KINDAFUNNY at checkout to save. Terms and conditions apply. This episode's brought to you by Shady Rays. Get ready for the season ahead with quality shades built to last. Our friends at Shady Rays have you covered with premium polarized shades that won't break the bank. Shady Rays is an independent sunglasses company that offers an unrivaled product that's just as good as any expensive pair we've worn. Durable frames and world-class optics for all outdoor adventures. With an extensive array of styles and colors, you're bound to find the perfect pair of Shady Rays sunglasses. Y'all know I've been outside in the sun playing a lot of Pokemon Go, and it's such a great experience wearing Shady Rays when I am out and about looking dope. That's not all. Shady Rays offers the most insane protection in all of eyewear. Every every pair of sunglasses is backed by lost or broken replacements. If you lose or break a pair, even on day one, they told us they will send you a brand new pair, no questions asked. Exclusively for you, Shady Rays is giving out their best deal of the season. Head to shadyrays.com and use code KF20 for $20 off each pair of polarized sunglasses. Try for yourself the shades rated 5 stars by over 300,000 people. This episode's brought to you by BetterHelp. We all carry around different stressors, big and small. I'm currently planning a wedding, so I know all about that. But when we keep them bottled up, it can start to affect us negatively. Therapy helps you find your strengths so you can ditch the extreme resolutions and make changes that really stick. You can get out of your negative thought cycles and find some mental and emotional peace, and it can give you the tools to find more balance in your life so you can keep supporting others without leaving yourself behind. Some of my best friends use BetterHelp and love how helpful it can be for learning positive coping skills and how to set boundaries. It empowers you to be the best version of yourself, and it isn't just for those who've experienced major trauma. If you're thinking of starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try. It's entirely online, designed to be convenient, flexible, and suited to your schedule. Just fill out a brief questionnaire to get matched with a licensed therapist and switch therapist at any time for no additional charge. Celebrate the progress you've already made. Visit betterhelp.com/kindafunny today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/kindafunny.
And we're back. What's that sound happening from over there? Look, Andy's laptop started speaking.
I'm trying to mute this shit. No, this is a.
What is? It was like, you.
It's a ROM hack tutorial that I was looking at.
Allegedly.
Not really. Be cool.
Minecraft.
I want to dive into some super chats that we got. I want to start off with Mara, who writes in and says, the conversation around Animal Well reminds me a lot of Tunic. Would you say that's an apt comparison?
Absolutely. When it comes to, well, I think the thing with Animal Well is like most of these secrets feel ingrained into the gameplay, where Tunic, a lot of it felt extracurricular. And there's definitely a lot of stuff you can find after the fact in Animal Well. Like, I'm not saying that like there's a lot of like little eggs that you could find around the world that when you unlock all of them, I'm sure it's like finding all the little Korok seeds. You get something special for it probably. And I got a decent amount of them. It's always cool whenever you found them, but I was always like, oh man, I wish I was like getting a tool for the thing that I'm really stuck on right now, because I thought this was the secret I was looking for.
I'll take it.
I think so much of the enjoyment from the puzzle solving and just discovery from Tunic was that I spent so much time in the post game for Tunic trying to just like, what the hell else is there here that I'm like slowly discovering? But you still have those awesome moments of, oh my gosh, I can't believe that the developer thought to do this for this moment. I had a lot of those moments of discovery in Animal Well for sure.
I love that more of these games are popping up that are willing to have secrets and willing to not hold the player's hands. And I think part of that comes from just a lot of bigger games and bigger successful games having success with that. I would look towards the Souls games for being like maybe even the ones that really made developers realize like, oh, we can really lean in on being very just not forward with the player in terms of how our mechanics work or how our items work and stuff like that. But like Chains of Sonar is another one that I feel like maybe there might be some comparison with, where a game that I pick up and I'm like, oh, I don't know shit about what this game is trying to tell me, but then the more you play, the more you understand the language of it. And I think that stuff was really cool.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I'm just gonna keep on hounding Raj to play Outer Wilds.
I will.
Outer Wilds is so much of it's very, very reminiscent of just being like a 3D version of this with how you are organically learning the language of the game.
I want to bring in two super chats that are about separate things, but I think they loop into some of the conversation. One, Austin Bennett writes in and says, I feel like not enough people are talking about how Animal Wells on PS Plus Extra. Sony should be doing a better job at advertising, my opinion. And then also Maximilian Malavenda writes in and says, would you say handheld, keyboard, and mouse, or controllers recommended? I'm curious on what platforms you guys played the game on.
Steam, YouTube.
Yeah, primarily... I'd say
Decker.
So deck, but I will say I had a breakthrough moment when I was playing on the deck. That fucking D-pad sucks so bad, and it feels so bad for this specific game. Playing with an Xbox controller, specifically like the series new ones where it has like the clicky.
Yeah.
No, not even like the Elites, like just like the regular new one. Like that comes with any, has like a clicky D-pad. It feels so much better. Like playing this on the Steam Deck literally made my thumbs hurt. So that's my experience personally.
Yeah, I probably played around 60 to 70% of it on the Steam Deck and played the rest on my desktop. And I was really excited at like, ooh, how's this game gonna look on my? I bet this game's gonna look insane on my OLED because it looks really good on the Steam Deck. Whenever you have, when I say like that, Steam Deck. Whenever you have like the scan lines on the Steam Deck OLED, it looks freaking fantastic. When I played on my desktop, I turned the scan line effect off because it didn't look as good as it did on the Steam Deck for me. So I turned that scan line effect off. But yeah, primarily on handheld. If you are comfortable playing games on keyboard mouse with like directional inputs, I think that's kind of really, really weird whenever I see people playing platformers like that. But I know like our homie Bob Wolf from Wolf Den plays Mario games with like a fight pad, like where he's like
that's nuts
using directional input. Yeah, he does a lot of like
I can't talk though. I played all of Ocarina of Time on my laptop. Allegedly. But I went controller for sure. Yeah, and I didn't really have issues with the Steam Deck. Maybe it's like a difference between the OLED and the older version. I had no issues with the controls there. It felt great to play, super responsive on both platforms. I want to bring another one from Cognitive Clips, who writes in and says, can y'all confirm that Animal Well is kind of like Halo 2 meets Halo 3?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
100%.
Of course, that's a donkey reference, and it's incredible, right? Because we were talking about it during a review roundup on KFG earlier, right before this, that...
Psych, it's Halo 3!
that, this being published by Big Mode. Big Mode is the Donkey's publishing brand that he's initiated, right? And this is their first game, and what a big... critically successful, at least so far. I'm sure it's going to sell copies. But as your first title, damn, like what a slam dunk.
Yeah.
And it makes me fascinated about where they go from here. I would love to see more like labels like Devolver come through. And I've been thinking a lot about Devolver recently, just in terms of how well they've been able to carve out an identity for themselves on the indie space. Like they probably are the most successful indie publisher, and then like below them you probably have an Annapurna and a few others. But I want to see more of those. And like if Big Mode is able to lead off with this and then use this success to have follow-ups that are of this ilk, I think that's super awesome.
Yeah.
Just jump in so you know, as we're recording right now, it's the number 5 top bestseller on Steam.
There you go.
At number 1, Hades. Number 2, Steam Deck. Number 3, V Rising. Number 4, Helldivers 2. Number 5, Animal Well.
Wow.
10% off for its debut, so it's $23 as instead of the usual 25, I guess.
Worth it.
There you go. Any final words on Animal Well before we move on?
Yeah, I was just personally taken by this game. It's an emotion. It was an emotional experience for me in a lot of moments. Whether that's by the music swelling in a certain moment and I'm tearing up, but also just the emotions of being a hardcore gamer and just getting at it and getting sweaty.
Getting sweaty. A hardcore
you know
gamer.
What that means. You know the vibes.
Dude, I was there with Stellar Blade. I get it.
Exactly. You're just sweating. You're trying to do the perfect platform and you're like, oh, I think I got this. I can do this. But yeah, this game really is special in my heart. And I specifically, that one moment that I alluded to earlier, I'm going to remember that moment for the rest of my life. That is a top tier moment. I hope you all enjoy it and play it for sure.
It's an absolute contender. This is like, I don't see how this doesn't make my top 10 this year.
Yeah.
So,
I was that enamored with the experience.
I was going to ask, is contender I always associated with 10 out of 10? That's more so it's a top 10 contender.
It has the opportunity to be in the contender, in the top 10 at the end of the year.
Games.
But there's no opportunity.
For years you've been like, it's
it's in my head. I'm like, oh yeah, 10 out of 10.
But there's no opportunities missed.
No, we're not doing this shit.
You gotta stop with this.
Sure.
Gotta stop.
So you just
Something.
think like Andy's given every other game like a 10?
Listen, all right, we play games we love.
It's a contender to be in the top 10 for sure. Like easily for me.
Yeah.
There you go.
My number 1.
Well, Greg, let's talk about a real video game. It's called Cryptmaster.
Let's talk about Cryptmaster.
What is Cryptmaster, Greg?
Cryptmaster is a delightfully hard game, I think, it's so many different things at once, and I feel like audio listeners, you owe it to yourself to look at a trailer for this if you have no idea what Cryptmaster is, right? The way I jotted down my notes to describe it, right, is that it is an old school first-person dungeon crawler RPG, except that you're controlling it and attacking it by typing. If you were to glance at it, I think you would get big Typing of the Dead kind of vibes, right? You are entering in words with your keyboard and then hitting the button to enter them in and make it happen in the game. You're controlling with the arrow buttons. You can use a gamepad. You can also do voice control for it. But you can use you're going on basically. Imagine a dungeon grid system with the arrows on your keyboard to move around. You move in, then you do what you want to do. Move in, grid by grid, square by square, to advance through this world and rise from your crypt. The idea here is that you have been awakened by the Cryptmaster, who is this head skeleton man talking to you right here, a necromancer. He's awakened the 4 heroes of old. You are undead.
Yeah.
You are there. And then the idea is that you ascend from your crypt to the top of the tower to help this necromancer like do some bad things, probably. You know what I mean? But along the way, you get into battles. You learn new attacks. You learn new defenses. You open chests. You solve riddles. You play a card game. And you do it all by typing out words on the screen. For me, this is on our scale an 8 out of 10. This is a great game. But to get all away from that, the word I would use to describe Cryptmaster is ingenious.
Yeah.
I did not fully know what I was signing up for. I saw the typing and was like, oh, that's a Greg game.
Keyboard.
I know. I hate that part of it. Right? I hated having to play at a PC. Steam currently there are not cloud saves, so then it's like I'm asking. Me and Andy are trying to track saves down through, and it's like every Greg Miller PC joke, right, is like coming to life. As I'm like, where is it in the fucking C drive menus? Blah blah blah. But it was, as you look at it, you hear about it.
Real quick, are there any updates for cloud saves in the future?
When I had hit them up about where they actually store their saves, they said they're working on it. So, yeah. Again, I mean, if you want to...
Yeah, this isn't a situation where you right-click the game in Steam and then go to, like, browse local files.
Yeah, no.
Because the save file is, like, in user local temp low.
no.
And the developer name is, like...
They didn't... Yeah, well,
there's no, like, Cryptmaster file that the save is in. It's, like, the developer, like, Hart and Williams or some shit.
Yeah,
It's
so the
hysterical.
idea, one of the things about this, I think, of what makes the game so brilliant, so special, so unique to see, and so in line with what we're talking about, right, is that the developer here is Paul Hart and Lee Williams. It's two guys made this game, right? And Akupara is publishing it, but it's like that level of indie.
Yeah.
And like today's May 9th, we talked about this on Games Daily, right? It's a crazy special day for indies. You have Animal Well, you have Cryptmaster, you have Little Kitty Big City, you have Crow Country, right?
Yeah.
Like there's all these
1,000
ones.
X Resist, apparently.
Yeah, there's all these indies that have dropped today that are like something special. And this game is ingenious, like I said, is the adjective for it. It has so many wonderful ideas in it. And it's crazy to be on the same review as Animal Well, because I have my Greg notebook where I had to go through and take notes and put down things and make my little cheat sheets and start drawing things out and leaving myself numbers and go like, that's what this game is. It is going through doing this in first person. It's black and white. It has this awesome art style to it. You could change the shade if you want, but to a color, but it's still like that black and white, just two-tone monochrome kind of thing, right? And the idea, is going through and typing, which is so much fun because everything you type, with the exception of your attacks, I would say, is a puzzle into itself. The game starts, right? You have woken up, you are these things, and you're coming back online. The Cryptmaster starts giving you chests. But the deal is that he opens the chest, only he can see what's in it. And then you have to type to him, touch, feel, lift,
smell.
taste, smell, eat. And then you have a certain amount of things. He describes what it tastes like or smells like or whatever. And then you have to guess what it is. In this instance, you would guess, you type it in, you get it right. The letters you used for the word it is then get distributed between your 4 players like Wheel of Fortune.
Yeah.
So you have these blank tiles underneath your name. They start filling in words there.
The Wordle.
So, exactly.
Wow.
I've been describing to people as Wordle meets an adventure game.
That's awesome.
So then you can sit there and just guess as long as you want what the words are. If you get the guess, it would fill in the thing, and then that would become an attack or a defense or just a piece of backstory. And like every character has so many different words and so many different things to do. And it starts off so simple of, right, and I don't want to ruin stuff. It's of an attack, right? But then it becomes the longer ones of like, oh, well, if you did this, your next attack has 2 damage or this, or you can help this person or revive that or do this.
It's all like party based and cooldown based. And so, like I've been describing it as Wordle meets an adventure game. And it's so, I think ingenious is like a really good way to put it, because I heard about this game just from Greg mentioning it, I think in one of the meetings of, hey, Cryptmaster's coming out this day. It seems like it could be a really, really big thing. I've seen people talk about it.
Art style reminds me of Inscription quite a bit.
100%.
Yeah, art style kind of has
100%.
that. But then, I had gotten the code from Greg. I started playing it at home, and I was expecting to like maybe play it for an hour, because I had a bunch of games to play and I'll spread between all of them, right? I boot up Cryptmaster, start playing it, and I just couldn't stop playing it. I still need to get back to it. I probably played around 4 to 5 hours.
How much did you play, Greg?
I haven't rolled credits yet. I'm 6 hours in when I couldn't get the save thing to work, and then I left my save here last night. I was like, fuck, I was going to finish it. I would say I'm within an hour and a half to 2 hours of finishing it. I would think probably on the shorter end. It came with a walkthrough that I cracked to look at like how many chapters are there, and it's like, oh, okay, it looks like I have one regular chapter and then like the end. So I feel like I'm right there.
But it's so fascinating because the way you essentially level up your characters is by figuring out like what the word is to then get the new abilities. And so you have essentially like 4 Wordle problems at the same time that you're solving at all times, and you'll get into fights with a bat or whatever that's in the crypt. And one of the first abilities that I was able to unlock that I'm sure is probably across the board is like hit. Because I had found like, oh, okay, well, H and T were like the first and last letters. So I'm sure, I'm like typing in hot and I'm like, maybe it's hit. And then I'm like, okay, they're like, now your character has that ability to hit things. And so I'll get into a fight with a bat and I click hit and then it's a cooldown and I have to wait for my turn again. And I click hit again and I take out the bat and then I get those, or I get to choose a letter from what the bat was named or whatever.
Yeah,
so
when
then
you
it adds my
defeat
thing.
an enemy, right, whatever the enemy's name is, you can then, your loot is taking the letter. So, but it is Wheel of Fortune.
That's cool.
So you guess A and it lights up and then none of your things go. You're like, fuck, there's no A in any of the words I have.
Yeah.
And so again, once you unlock one of the words for these 4 characters, then you get a new word down there. So then it is like, even if you've used A before, obviously it behooves you to do it again if you've been paying attention to try to fill in and do this whole thing.
And you can guess as much as you want too. Like there's not really a limit to it when you're just exploring the world.
Yeah, exactly. So when you're just out and about, if you wanted to just stop and say, okay, this is a 5-letter word and I have a TH in there, I'm gonna figure. You could do that if you want to, but again, going to fight an enemy, right, gets you then the ability to pull from their letters to open up more to make the guessing easier.
Right.
And there's also other ways too of like, this is where it gets. This is a bless game. This is a puzzle poppy game, which I think if I would have heard, it might have kept me away, and I'm glad it didn't, because getting into it and realizing, oh, like this is crazy, because like the chess stuff I think is easy in the front, right, and then as you get going, it does get more like, well, fuck, it's a long cylinder with a fucking tail. What is he talking? You know what I mean?
No,
like going,
that one got me too.
and I was like, okay, and so like you go through and you get, and if you don't get it, he just goes, it couldn't be that important, and shuts it. And you get no letters and you get nothing out of it, right? Now, to the game's credit, there are hints if you want to turn them on. You can get more choices or more guesses for that and help on that. Same thing with these piles of, you'll run into these skulls that are piled up. You go there, the skull will tell you a riddle. And then it is like, it's like you're fucking dealing with the Riddler of like, okay, shit, what is, you know what I mean? Like, there a lot of the riddles are older ones that you've heard somewhere else or whatever. Or if you're like me, you just Google it. Or I'm like, listen, I ain't got time. I'm trying to do a million things in this game right now. I don't need this. But it was like,
Wait,
okay.
like that, like they weren't riddles created by the game.
Correct.
They're like kind of
they're riddles that you
general.
Exactly. Yeah,
a doctor.
It's like
a
word
doctor
riddles.
gave birth to somebody.
It was his wife.
It was his wife.
yeah. Kind
His
of
wife
shit.
was a doctor. You know.
Yeah.
I was gonna do like the whole like, I forget the God of War Ragnarok, the exact phrasing of it, but like, what do you, not what do you dig? What when you keep removing, it only gets bigger. It's like that kind of
Yeah,
like
what
regard.
grows the more you take away from it.
Yeah, what grows the more you take away from it. Thank
Love
you.
or something, or your heart.
I thought it was a hole. I forget what it was.
Boner.
Boner.
It's a whole.
It's a hole. Right?
Anyways, you have that, and again, the same thing there, where if you fail enough, it'll ask you, but you could turn it on the options as well. Just turn on like, hey, give me hints or help me out or whatever kind of thing. So like, but you're going through that and you're answering those, and those then fill in your thing. So there's so many words for all these characters that you are constantly going and finding it. The more you get, you'll level up. When you level up, if you want to toss it back up, Barrett, all the character names are there, right? It'll add another letter to the character name, because the character name is your health bar. When you get into battle and you take a hit, one of your letters of one of the character name letters goes away. So Joro could just become Jor, right? And that'd be okay. Well, I've taken 1 damage or whatever, and of course you can fall and do that. But like
Get a character named Benedict Cumberbatch.
exactly. Get a
Big health
cummerbund out there.
Yeah, one of the things I like is when you do get into combat, when you get a bit further into the game, because each character kind of has their own role that they're playing, and so
you're a warrior, a bard, a sea witch, and a thief/assassin.
Yeah, and so I think it's the bard that has abilities that then buff other people's abilities. And so like I'll get into a fight with a bat or like a walking skull or some shit, and it is the first thing I'm like, all right, hit, and I type it in. I'm like, okay, jab. All right, and I'll use like I'll just type in yell, so the bard can like refill the cooldowns of my other characters real quick, so I don't have to wait. And I'm like, all right, cool, hit, jab, yell. All right, hit again. All right, jab again.
Kick,
Like
punch. It's all in your mind.
it really is me typing as
It
fast
feels
as
like you're
possible.
hacking, and there's like a flow state to it where
Yeah.
it really is. I'm like, all right, Joro isn't buffed by him doing his thing, so I use Joro. I use the other 2 people. I go to the bar. He goes, "Sorry." He does this little thing because he's like a zombie or whatever.
Yeah.
Gives them back their thing, do their attacks again, and you really get going.
Yeah,
But
like
then
I have my-
as you escalate and go with the enemies, right, you start getting into like, okay, well, this guy's got a shield, and on the shield is a B, meaning that if any of your attacks have a B in it, you can't use. That'll be blocked, right? Other things are like, this guy's immune to knockdown, or just this guy can't use letter T words, and like there's all these little things that you get in there where you need alt attacks, you need all this stuff, which is why like my notes are both cheat sheets for words, and then also like me being like, all right, I'm sick of fucking wasting it. And like, did I already guess an I? So I'm like writing it down, but even then it gets kind of muddled.
So you're better than I am, because I would click the same letters over and over. I'm like, oh yeah, certainly this has an I, and then it'll be like no I, and I'm like, I guess I before.
And see, that's one of the things, and I want your question in 1 second. That's one of my things that for me brings down the experience is that it's an old school looking game, and I want to even say inspirations of this like dungeon for FPS dungeon crawler, right? In kind of like a severed way. But there's a few quality of life things that I just don't understand why. And I understand it's a small dev team, yada, yada, yada. But like why they weren't there of like, give me something to indicate what I've guessed on these words if I wanted to, right? Like I understand it being, it is frustrating.
That should be part of one of those like quality of life.
Exactly, right? Same thing with the map. Like I think I was playing this in a way that was detrimental to it in terms of, all right, cool, it's my afternoon these 2 days at IGN. Kind of funny, right? Where I'm just going to go in the streaming lab and play it there. But that meant like I need to make progress. And so at some point, the style of the game and that black and white, right? It became a little bit grating to be playing so long on. I was just like, I could go for something, and then everything kind of starts to look the same.
Yeah.
And so it would be that thing where I would go get a cup of coffee and then do an email and have a meeting and
Pick
come
up
back
Ben
and sit
he's
back
like
down.
in black and white.
Sit back down and be like, wait, fuck, did I come in that door, or am I going towards, okay, shit. And then there'd be like another time where like I finally solved, like, because not only is there the chest puzzles, the skull puzzles, there's then the narrative you're on where you get to like, oh, how do you open that door? What does this person need from me to do the thing to get MacGuffin? And then it would be that idea of being, I finally get to what I think it is. No, okay, you got the next part of it, but you really need to go talk to this guy that you saw what I feel like was an hour and a half ago. And I'm like, where the fuck was that guy? There's no overworld map. There's local maps, but again, they're very basic. So I was like, shit, where was? And it wasn't hard to find, but it was that moment of like, fuck, I don't know where he is off the top of this. I feel like there's just little things like that that could have gone further for me of like, okay, cool. Like it can be as challenging as I want it to be, but it also can be as welcoming as I want it to be.
How would Snowback Mike experience this game as somebody with a keyboard that doesn't have letters printed on the buttons?
It's gonna
Really
struggle.
tough for him.
It's gonna struggle.
Yeah.
That's where my question goes. You mentioned that there's voice like commands, or I mean, where you can like actually say the words. Like, how does that work?
Yeah,
Is that an accessibility thing?
It is an accessibility
Okay.
thing, and one of the warnings they pop up on is this is an accessibility feature. It might not be the best thing in the world, kind of
okay.
thing. So I didn't even screw with it, but it is there in
Gotcha.
terms of if you wanted to speak to it.
What-
The Cryptmaster makes a joke about it in the front. Game's hilarious.
Yeah.
The writing is great. The VO is great. The surprises, like you guys are talking about, are great. Like there's a few things where it's like you get to. Not even the boss, you get to the guy or gal you were going to go talk to, right? And it's like, oh, I didn't see this being the thing. Oh, this is a really fun game of trying to finish what you're doing in a very interesting way. I don't want to spoil, right? Like, there's a bunch of that. There's this little cute card game in there. Like, there's so much going on in it in a way that I think every time you think you might have figured it out or like, okay, is this the thing? Like, something happens. Like when I leveled up the first time, I was like, oh, I didn't see that coming. That actually is encouraging me to play a way I wasn't. Because once I feel, at least the way it's been going for me almost at the end of the game now, is that basic attack I was fine with. Like when they get into the, well, if you do this, then that attack that I don't even use will be doing 2 times the damage, but you'd skip it. And I'm like, I'm doing fine. I'm killing
Don't
them.
worry about me.
I got a way to break through the armor tile when it pops up, because again, the enemy names are also their health bars, right? So you'll see the character's name, but then there'll be a shield in the middle of it, right? So you know you have to use your armor breaker on that. And I was like, okay, cool. I don't need this intense thing, but whatever.
Yeah.
That's
One
so
of,
sick.
one of the things I want to shout out is how contextual a lot of the stuff you'll write in is, and like how well they account for it. Because you can at any point just write in words, right? Because you're guessing whatever the letters are and the abilities that you want to unlock. And the narrator, the Cryptmaster, will comment on anything that you write, and most of it will be like, "Oh, I don't know what that is."
Why would you
But-
say that?
Why
Yeah,
would you
do
say
this
that?
thing, yeah.
But there are a lot of things where I'm like, all right, maybe it's sword, and he was like, sword. That'd be nice to have right now. And like, there's so much of that where I'm like,
That's awesome.
Damn, that's pretty impressive. And I was telling a friend about that, and they're like, yeah, how do they do that? Like, are they using AI? And I'm like, I don't think they're using AI.
One of my notes, right, is the serotonin hit of, I don't think this will work. Oh shit, it worked. Like that.
Yeah.
This game's got so much of that, where you either on the puzzle take the chance and it works, or you're messing with the dial because like some of the doors are locked and you have to like put yourself in the character who you're trying to get to's head of like what would they do. Those things they don't. I don't want to speak too out of turn on it. I feel like they don't reuse a lot of their things. So like there's one where I'm wandering through and like, what the fuck is with all this shit on the wall? And then you got I'm like, oh, and I ran back and I'm looking and taking notes on what's on the wall. You know what I mean? Like, but then I'm on patrol for that as I play other stuff, and it wasn't really happening the same way. And I'm like, that's really smart about it. Like, they do a really great job of keeping you invested, entertained, even when you are sitting there going, what the fuck do I need to do?
Yeah.
Like there's one section where it's like you get to a little island and it's like, oh, well, we got to figure all this out. And like he's playing I Spy. And the first ones I got so easy. And then it was like, this one begins with R. And I'm like, rock. No. The shit else is in it. Rock. You know what I mean? Like, no.
God.
Is it a cap sensitive? What the fuck?
Yeah, I think there's like a lo-fi aspect to it. You're talking about how like it can feel indie, and which almost makes it.
This sounds like the most indie game ever made. Like,
which it makes like the contextual aspect of it really impressive. But yeah, you listen to the voice acting, and I'm like, are you using a computer mic? Like this? It's not like the most like not the best voice acting I ever heard. But it fits because everything kind of feels that way. Like even the art style is very unique, and they go for it in the art style. But it is also, I think, like Greg was alluding to before, it's hard to look at sometimes. Like I'll see the characters, I'm like, it's an ugly looking character, but it's purposely ugly. But I'm also like, ooh, I also don't like looking at it all the time at the same time. But so much of it feels like I don't know if you guys remember, or if you guys used Newgrounds back in the day, and you would find like an ingenious game on Newground where it's like, oh, there's a lot of promise here. Like whoever made this Flash game has like a lot of good ideas. It almost feels like that, where you can tell it's a small team, but it's a small team that's really smart and really like understands the vision that they have, and we're able to kind of see it through in a way that fit within their means. And it's a game that I would recommend. Like I think if any of this sounds interesting to you, or if you're somebody that's just looking for something different or weird to play, I was shocked by how much it pulled me in the first hour once I realized what was going on.
And again, like I said, a lot of different accessibility things with the hints and whatever, but it's also like they recommend you playing real time. But if you're not the best typer or whatever, you can set it over to turn based, so you can take your time, do it. There's an option in there to turn on predictive text, so you could start writing and it would kind of fill it in for you or whatever. Like there's a bunch of stuff in there to make this
Have you tried the controller?
No, I never did. Of course, PCs are weird, so I didn't have one plugged in. I was like, I don't want to.
So that's my question to you, Greg. Is like, what drew you to this game? Was it the art style? Was it the fact that you like Wordle? Like, because this
it's
feels
the fact that I like Wordle. I like word puzzles
Okay.
like that. Yeah, like I like those kind of things. I've been playing Wordle here and there again in the New York Times app, and so it was like this popped up. I was at the Barrett showed the trailer that it had the IGDF awards in the front. I was at that, and so when they won, I was like, oh right, I remember when this game had one of those moments where like I forget what it was.
We saw it somewhere, yeah.
It popped up and everyone's like, oh, it looks rad. And then I kind of forgot about it, and then it won an award this year at GDC, and I was like, oh shit, fuck, I got this on my Open Critics team, and then I got to get over there. There's no Open Critic page as of right now.
I saw that.
Fix it. I don't know who Open Critic. I don't know if you're watching how to fix it. If the chat knows, fix it. Nick, fix it. Fix it.
Nick fixed it.
He said he'd fix it, audio listeners.
But yeah, it stood out to me that way, and I was like, I like Wordle. I love this setting. Again, like a horror RPG-ish. And I use RPG so lightly. It really is like unlocking new words, which I guess is leveling, and then opening up and leveling up and getting. Come on. How do you get an Open Critic page?
Greg's fucked.
Well, there you go. That's been Animal Wall. That's been Cryptmaster.
Yeah.
2 game reviews in 1 episode. Let us know in the comments below, how excited are you to play these games? Have you already been playing them? Let us know your thoughts below. Until next time, of course, remember, this has been Kinda Funny Gamescast. Each and every weekday, we get together to talk about the biggest reviews, previews, and topics in video games, live on YouTube, Twitch, and on podcast services around the globe. If you love what we do, support us with the Kinda Funny membership on Patreon or YouTube to get all of our shows ad-free, watch or score them live, and get a daily exclusive show. Enjoy Nick's Pokemon Nuzlocke next, right after this, if you're watching on Twitch or YouTube. You can catch today's KFGD on YouTube or podcast services as well. And know that until next time, it's been our pleasure to serve you.